Thank you, Rabbi Sarah Basin. It was very nice, very warm opening. And I would like to congratulate the Rabbi for a new position here at the Temple Emmanuel. So if we could give a round of applause. I'm very honored to be here today. I mean, I've never really been a keynote speaker, so hopefully I can do a good job. I'd like to congratulate the graduates of the MAJIC program. You're all very inspiring. The words of Samantha and Avi really touched me. I think you truly are the next generation of brave leaders in our community, so continue to do the good work. I must say though, to be honest, I never thought that I would find myself here standing before a crowd, speaking to a graduating class of Muslims and Jews. This is actually a very beautiful thing to witness. I'm very honored to be here. But as I said, it is very surprising. It's almost very surreal. And let me explain why. I grew up in a little sleepy town north of Glendale called La Crescenta. I'm part of a Palestinian-American family, born to a Christian mother and Muslim father. So you can only imagine how very interesting that experience was for me. And being maybe one of the only Palestinians in La Crescenta, and maybe 3 or 4 other Muslim families in that area, I learned hardship. I learned discrimination. I learned how difficult it is to grow up being the other. But in my own home, I didn't grow up I didn't grow up watching cartoons like Scooby-Doo or Sesame Street. Unfortunately, like many Palestinian Americans, we watched CNN growing up. And much of that is due to the fact that all our families are very connected to what's going on in the Middle East. And unfortunately, the images we see are often of violence, of disobedience, of disorder, of many things. And it's very hard to watch and very hard to witness. And for me, I always wanted to do something. I always wanted to change the world, that great idealistic mission that I'm sure many of us had. But for me, it was a very difficult journey. And it led me to go overseas. I thought, perhaps I could find a way to change the world back in the Middle East. I could go back home and single-handedly be the savior some way. But of course, that wasn't the reality. Going back, I saw that it was very difficult for me to connect. I was too American for the Palestinians there, and the Palestinians were too Palestinian for me, I guess, in many ways. And I did go to the home of what was once the home of my mother in Jerusalem, and stood before an empty lot. And it was very difficult, because I could see firsthand that really I didn't have a place there. Maybe that fight that I so desperately wanted to be a part of was not in the Middle East. In fact, perhaps it was back home. It was back here in Los Angeles. And that community that I so desperately tried to not really associate myself with here, I wanted to kind of connect. But before I did, I decided to work locally, because I feel service in your own backyard is one of the most important things you can do. So when I returned, I spent perhaps 9 years of my life working in youth services. I was a caseworker for refugees resettled in LA and Orange County. I tried to advocate for communities in the Asian American, Latino, African American communities, but never with Muslims and Jews. Why? Because as I said, growing up, it was very difficult to see all the violence on TV. And in many ways, I felt I didn't want to engage that process. I was skeptical and I was afraid. I was worried about the discussions that would come out. It would be too sensitive to bear. And I'm sure many of you have had the experience of being at those discussions where most of the time people are yelling and shouting at each other. But I realized that this had to change. I needed to find a way to engage this process. I needed to find a way to do this here in my own home. So Adina Lekovich, who couldn't be here today, was one of the people who introduced me to a program called NewGround. I hadn't really heard too much about it, but I did know a few fellows who'd come out of it and seemed very, very happy, very proactive and very positive about the world and about the process of dialogue between Jews and Muslims. Again, I was skeptical. I didn't know exactly if this was just a big kumbaya session or if this was going to be a real experience with real positive results. So I joined in 2012 and became an alum in 2013. That experience was life-changing. It opened my eyes. I gained leadership skills and the ability to communicate with the other in ways that I had never learned before. I'm sure many of you here today, the graduates of MAJIC, went through a similar process as I did. But believe me, being an adult, it's a lot harder. We're more stubborn, we're very set in our ways, and we don't like to agree. But in this program, I found myself opening up. I found myself actually reaching out and talking to a community that I wouldn't have never really talked to before. See, NewGround, it's not the answer, but it is a very, very important step. It's a step towards humanizing ourselves. It's a step towards understanding who we are as people first, before Muslims and Jews. Because we need to do that first. We need to respect each other. We need to find that common ground and that friendship. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that in MAJIC with your fellow students, making friendships with people that, as I'm sure you never thought you would. And the same experience happened to me. I have now very good friends in the Jewish community and even in the Muslim community, who before I didn't. And it was a very illuminating experience for me, as I said. And what I'd like to say to all the graduates here today is that there is hope. There is a next step. Continue to do work in your communities. Continue to provide service. Because the work you do here in Los Angeles is very important. There are many issues to face, there are many problems to tackle, and they all need to be addressed by us. But more importantly, I think it's important to see that what you are doing here today is very new and very special. It is a road to something that I'm sure many of us are not sure where it will lead, but I think it is a brighter path than many others. I haven't seen any other route in my own life that leads to real peace and resolution between our communities. And to the graduates here, confront the obstacles. Confront them with a smile. Look at the naysayers and enjoy what they say. Let them say what they will, because in the end of the day, they are not being proactive. They are only just talking. And talk is cheap. And so for many of you, do not be deterred. You will hear many horrible things from people. I have heard horrible things from people about working with the other side. But these same people have not done anything constructive. Has there been any real change or peace for our people in the past 60 years? No. So obviously the other way is not working. So there must be a new way, and it is right here with all of you. But again, outside of leadership and outside of communication comes the real work. And that's something I really wanted to speak to you too about. The work that I've been involved with after NewGround has been very special. And as Rabbi Sarah just mentioned, I joined the Major Fund, which stands for Muslim and Jewish Organized Relief. This is a very unique partnership between our communities. We've come together as people with only one real goal: to make the world better, or at least to change it into a better place than we left it. And I do want to recognize one of the founding members, Diane, if she could stand, please. Give her a round of applause. The founding members of the Major Fund came out of the 2012 NewGround cohort and came up with this idea that if we could increase our sense of community locally, we could share that community through our global humanitarianism. And how that has happened is by developing projects over and across the world, and by addressing the issue of water. We feel that that is one of the most important things to tackle because it is a universal issue. The problem of water, clean, drinkable water, for many of you may not be something you think about, but is definitely a problem for our future and future generations, and even currently for many people across the globe. So the Major Fund has accomplished 2 projects over the past 2 years. In 2012, the first project was in Burma at a nunnery. A water tower was built there to provide clean water for the children in that region. And just recently, we completed another water project at a primary school in Uganda. This is amazing. Jews and Muslims came together and did projects across the world for one sole purpose: to help and to heal. And that is really the essential thing here. We have to heal. We have to heal this world, and we have to heal each other. It is in us, and we can do it. Our youth here today are an example of that. By working together, you heal our wounds and our pain. They are very powerful and sometimes overwhelm us, but we cannot be taken down by them. And projects like the Major Fund is a tool for that. And I encourage all of you to join. I encourage all of you to be a part of our community. There are many ways for you to be involved in the Major Fund. Obviously, we'll continue to do more projects across the world, so your contributions are very helpful. Every penny you provide is a step towards creating more clean water projects in the world, and even other projects regarding health and education. And then another way you can help, and another very important way you can help, is by joining our community, by being involved in the Major Fund. If you contact either myself or Diane, there's definitely plenty of ways for you to be involved in committees or in educational events where we talk more about this unique partnership that we've developed. So please do come, speak to me, speak to Diane, and we would love to share what we've journeyed through together. I think of all the things we've accomplished friendships that are very strong and I hope long-lasting. Thank you all, and thank you for having me.